Well, let's bring in somebody who's very familiar with the streaming space. We've got Tuna Amobi, CFRA analyst. Tuna, we haven't spoken to you since that big deal was announced last week between AT&T and Discovery. Now we've got another potential deal in the works. How big of a shift does this signal in the content space?
Good morning, Akiko. No, I think definitely what we're seeing, and by the way, you guys put it very well. It's all about the content arms race. And what we're seeing now is how this arms race has become the catalyst for the latest, round of consolidation. I think Amazon going after MGM and potentially the price tag of $9 billion, which, by the way, we haven't quite wrapped our heads around that valuation. But it just shows you how the streaming wars have kind of recalibrated the value of content. Talking about a studio that has been on and off the for sale for the last few years, and now Discovery and Warner Media kind of coming together in what seems like another deal that will radically transform the competitive landscape for streaming video. So what you're seeing now is more and more players in there looking to put their mark and kind of scale up and make deals that will at least give them a fighting chance of being in this game for the long term.
Yeah, so what does that mean for maybe some of those other potential targets out there? I mean, you could look at a Viacom or some of these other companies out there that would kind of add to some of the a la carte options out there. What does that do for valuations now?
I think what's likely to happen, Zach, is that, and you've seen that already in some of the reactions of names like, Lionsgate, AMC Networks, and others that are now being looked at more closely. You mentioned Viacom, CBS. I think the way the shares have reacted lately, I think kind of shows you the perception from the investment community that perhaps they need more scale to compete. Now you've got the big three in Netflix, Disney Plus, and now you've got Warner and Discovery. Who's going to be that kind of fourth viable player? And that's really the race here. I would not be surprised, Zach, if that kind of triggers another round of continuing mega consolidation that could involve some of these names that we've talked about.
Tuna, so much of this is discussed in the context of Netflix and the competition they face, largely because they were the first to market. What we're seeing in this space right now, and a lot of these entities sort of doubling down on investments in content, does that strengthen the case for a name like Netflix if you're looking at it from an investment standpoint?
That's an interesting question. I think really, Netflix, what we've seen is that while they definitely have been enjoying that early mover advantage for quite some time, I would argue that advantage is beginning to recede. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to be one of the long-term winners. In fact, I think that the runway, the addressable market for streaming has been significantly expanded, and especially think about international markets. Where there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit. So to your question, the competitive deck has been significantly reshuffled and continues to be by all of these deals that we see here. Ultimately, we think that it's probably going to be 3 to 5 viable long-term competitors, and you're likely to see some type of coalescing of the other fringe players around some of these bigger names that we're expecting Netflix to be one of those.
So with that competitive deck in place, who do you think rises to the top?
I do believe that, remember, this streaming war is not just a huge war. There's battles, that are being fought in various areas, whether it's subscription or advertising based, whether it's sports, entertainment, news. And there's going to be multiple winners. To your question, I do believe that within the entertainment, genre, on demand, Netflix, of course. And you're seeing names like Peacock and Discovery and others looking for niche areas to differentiate themselves. Sports, for example. That's one area where I think you're going to see, Peacock and Warner Discovery look to be at play, especially in a lot of regions. And then you look at, sports. I mentioned Disney Plus, of course, ESPN, I'm sorry. Ultimately, I think this battle will shake out in ways that a lot of people did not expect. And right now, No one really knows how big a lot of these international markets are, just really depending on mobile. A lot of mobile markets are just barely untouched. And that's where I see a lot of the low-hanging fruit for these names that will be launching internationally in the next few years.